All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. The International Parking and Mobility Institute presents today's Learning Lab, Leap into the Future with Innovative Parking Solutions, presented by Frogparking. My name is Kenny, Senior Training and Certification Specialist at IPMI, and I will be your moderator for today's presentation. As a reminder, today's presentation is being recorded. We will make the recording available online and will post it to IPMI's YouTube channel within a few days. Before we start, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules for today. This Learning Lab will last 60 minutes with a Q&A session at the end. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please feel free to queue up a question at any time by typing it into the Q&A. To ask a question, click the Q&A icon in the Zoom menu. A window will open. Please type your question and hit enter. We will get to as many as time allows. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers: Greg Mason, Head of U.S. Growth and Strategy, Frogparking; Dr. Tim Brooks, Data Specialist and Parking Subject Matter Expert, Frogparking; Andrew Murphy, Software Development Team Lead, Frogparking. Greg Mason brings years of experience both from operations, sales, and support. He is well known within the industry and particularly known for his excellent work with technological innovation. In his role at Frogparking, with a focus on delivery and proven track record, Greg focuses on partnering with operations and customers to transform the business, parking operations, and technology to drive business outcomes. Greg has been a key figure in the success of many parking companies, including SP Plus, Tiba Parking, and Town Parking. He has an unbelievable wealth of knowledge in product delivery, customer success, technical sales, and creative and technical writing, alongside design and engineering, sourcing, manufacturing, and inventory and logistics. As Frogparking's subject matter expert, Tim Brooks brings unparalleled knowledge and insight into all aspects of parking operations, system design, and technical integration. With over a decade of experience in the parking industry, his expertise is unmatched, making him the go-to consultant for clients seeking to optimize their parking infrastructure and enhance operational efficiency. Tim holds a PhD from Massey University in Palmerston North, New Zealand, awarded in 2012. His comprehensive understanding of both frog parking hardware and software allows him to bridge the gap between technology and real-world application. He excels at translating complex technical capabilities into strategic advantages, helping clients unlock the full potential of their parking systems and deliver seamless, future-ready solutions. Andrew Murphy is a seasoned software development leader with over 20 years of experience spanning insurance, transport, educational, retail, and parking technology. At Frogparking, he spearheads the development of software solutions that optimize revenue management, streamline operations, and enhance the user experience. With deep expertise in both cloud-based and on-premise technology, Andrew designs scalable, high-performance solutions that position Frogparking at the forefront of the parking industry. His strategic approach to technology innovation ensures clients benefit from seamless, future-proof systems that maximize efficiency, profitability, and long-term success. And now I'm going to turn the audience over to our presenters, Greg, Tim, Andrew. The audience is all yours.
Thank you, Kenny. So I think Tim's going to give the introduction to the first couple slides.
Just make sure I unmute myself. Thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it, as we all do. We are going to be discussing a leap into the future with innovative solutions. Our main agenda is that we'll be introducing Frogparking. Greg is going to talk about optimizing revenue and how things work within the industry as far as these Frogparking innovative solutions versus legacy solutions. I'll be discussing the problems evident in today's industry and how we as Frogparking look to solve those solutions. And then I'll pass over to Andrew for the development and technology side of things, where he'll dig into a little bit more of the hard nuts and bolts of what's going on in the back end. And then we'll wrap up with a QA. Greg, is this one back over to you, or should I carry on with it?
Yeah, you want to give the intro? Yep.
Oh, sure. So yeah, Frogparking is a multinational manufacturer. We are the OEM for a lot of our equipment, with the exception of a few items that it doesn't make sense for us to develop. We have the end-to-end solution with many different hardware types and software add-ons for those solutions, which I'll get to in a bit more detail later. We have a full in-house development team. We are very philosophically aligned with making sure that we're in control of everything that our system does so that we can provide the best outcomes. We have a philosophy that the people we partner with own their own data. and we don't in any way hold that to ransom. We have demonstrated results across several of the key verticals, all of the major ones. We have a large number of clients in the US that are seeing great results from our system. We're also operator agnostic. We can work with anybody regardless of what their setup is like. We can simply configure our system to match what they need to do to service their clients.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so I'll get started into some of this kind of optimization of revenue and kind of what that means. But in today's world, I would be remiss not to touch on a little bit of the history of parking systems and kind of their hardware. And I think this kind of really outlines how fast we're moving. Really in the early 2000s, the early aughts, the industry was transitioning from parking booths to fee computers, right? So instead of just the old cash bill or the old time clocks, that were stamping tickets and those types of things. And then by the late 2000s, cash machines were moving into the lane as the parking attendant was kind of moving out, right, and kind of moving into this parking ambassador type role. And it's kind of interesting when you look at some of the legacy systems out there and you look at the service providers, they're typically a time and attendance company or component in the background. So you'll see a lot of those, right? And I think one of the oldest ones, and my fondest memories of getting started in the industry was like Cincinnati Time, for example. That came into a motto. So as you're kind of growing up in the parking industry, it kind of becomes nostalgic to see these companies and folks, that have been really a pillar in our industry. Kenny?
Greg, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your sound is coming out a little distorted. Would it be possible to do a quick reset?
Sure. See what I can do here.
Want to make sure.
Let's see.
Everybody.
All right. How about now?
Oh, perfect.
Yep. All right.
I'll interrupt. Go.
Yep. No, appreciate that. So into the 2010s, cash payments, they moved from that cash machine in lane to pay on foot stations. And then you have the rise of digital aggregators that we're all familiar with and the plethora that we have today, right? Everybody's looking at that digital transaction. And I think in the 2010s, it was tricky, a lot of folks, buying new systems, those types of things, suddenly, having to retrofit parking systems with QR code scanners and those types of things. And just when everybody felt like that was under control, we had introductions of these larger phones, right? The early QR codes had to face down. They couldn't face the driver. They weren't approved for eye contact and those types of things. And so there was like these little pockets that people were having to put their phones in and, rain on their phones. And then the phones, as they got bigger, didn't fit in the phone pockets, things of that nature. There was a lot of money spent, trying to chase the dream, right? And then 2015 onward, cashless systems have really become a thing of the norm. My days at TIBA, just less and less cash machines getting sold. They're still out there. You still see them from time to time, but a lot of companies, if they're not talking about no longer manufacturing cash machines, a lot of them aren't, right? They're just moving away from that. And then the COVID era, the pandemic, I think, for me that at least what I see kind of really marked the end of a lot of cash just in one fall swoop, right? So, really getting into contactless, touchless, masks, gloves, people not wanting to handle and count money, delays in money pickup and, different cash handling companies and those types of things really made it difficult to do that. But as a result, these frictionless based systems, app based QR codes, LPR enforcement technology, really took hold. Where I think back then, a lot of companies were trying to dip their toe into it. A lot of other companies really fast forwarded and really put a lot of R&D into it quickly. So when it comes to parks systems, and my approach and kind of my portion of the learning lab for you is, what can you do as you're looking at new parking systems, right? Asking for the quotes, you really need to spend time and understand who you're working with. Your service provider you may have been working with for 10 years, 15 years, you may love them completely. But in that 10 or 15 years that you may be working with them, how many portions of equipment, how many equipment companies have they changed partners with, right? What's the longevity of their current partner? If you are looking for legacy systems, those do require a different type of hands-on service, right? If you're looking for cache, kind of down towards the bottom, I wrote, is your site special? What tech is around your location, right? And it's not to say that individual locations all need to be treated the same. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is if you try to do something to appease the 1%, the cost, the ongoing maintenance and support of that 1% thing, can negatively impact your overall ROI of your parks system over 5, 7, 10 years, right? So, my point on this slide is to really open up the inquisitive portion of what it is that's in the market. What does it take to support that solution in your particular market? Downtown Atlanta is far different than, if you're, say, in Asheville, North Carolina, right? And while everybody intuitively knows that, what does that actually mean when you pick up the phone and say, I need service? What's the response time? What is the trip charge? Where are parts located? All of those types of things, right? And in today's world, you have a lot more options when it comes to your tech provider, your service provider, whether it be with some type of fee, transaction fee, a SaaS fee. I think the larger locations, for years have all had liquidated damages, those types of things added to them. For me, for the operations that I used to operate, we couldn't command liquidated damages on a 6-lane system, right? We didn't have the buying power for a service provider or manufacturer to agree to that, right? And so now today, as we look at, how do we align technology, operations to revenue, look for ways to make sure that people are aligned with your goals. So our roots in our systems, where I started 20 years ago, I think we all remember the non-resettable gate counters, right? When you look at the old federal equipment that was out there and the original McGann equipment, always had non-resettable gate counters, and we were very regimented in reporting out and auditing to that. I remember the old the ticket trays and the ticket booths where we aligned the tickets in order in which they were spat out and looking for missing tickets and lost tickets and those types of things. As we get into automated systems, we are seeing a very regimented approach to revenue collected, and not so much on the uncollected revenue, unaccounted for gate vends, things of that nature. And Over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've spent a lot more time with auditors and consultants trying to bring that back to a lot of parks systems, right? Whenever it comes down to buying a new park system on the budget side, it's hard to kind of prove, well, hey, this is what the system can do if we upgrade it, right? So when you approach for an RFP, have your audit plan in place, share your operational plan with your parks provider, right? Do they agree? Can they support your operation? Can they support your audit plan? Do the reports exist, right? How do those work? Get in writing how the system is going to operate, okay? If you don't get that up front, it can, not always, but it can get a little tricky sometimes when you are moving from one type of modality to another, especially if you're going from a ticketed system to a ticketless system, right? Understanding all of that in a very deep way before that capital expense is bought is very much key. And then know the lifespan of what you're buying. It was interesting to me growing up in the industry and then getting into some of these larger RFPs and municipalities, universities. They wanted 5, 7, 10-year software guarantees, ongoing preventative maintenance, all of these things. And the numbers, when you put your finger on that sheet going down to the bottom of the list, you could really kind of gauge, right? Not that people bought those, but you could really gauge what it was that it was going to take financially to keep that system operating for 7 to 10 years, right? And that's where you started seeing gaps in a lot of legacy systems. That's where cash really started becoming expensive. People could put a dollar sign to manage, those bill counting machines and recyclers and those types of things. Those things take a lot of dirt, a lot of grime, wear and tear, and so pretty soon you were having an ROI on that smaller percentage I was talking about before, right? Understand your service rates and don't ask for the world. You can get whatever it is you want, right? Money can buy it, but you've got to be careful what you ask for because it does impact the bottom line. And in a lot of operations, as systems are consolidated, as reporting is consolidated, as operators are connecting to the back end of systems and creating consolidated and portfolio reporting, outliers can be seen very quickly, right? And that's a great thing. It's a great thing because it shows when systems need to be replaced. But if a system is purchased on the fringe, shall we say, and that expense up front is kind of needless, that system can get kind of obsolete quickly, right? And everybody wants to preserve their capital expense for as long as possible. And then again, where are your parts? Where are they coming from? So kind of remembering our roots and what it is that we're trying to do, basic system KPIs that you would want to look at and make sure the system is able to track is obviously paid transactions. If you're getting a financial report, ratios, laws of large numbers, those types of things do not lie. Understand how many transactions do we have that are paid? How many are discounted, validated? How many transactions are in a grace period? How many transactions are associated with passes or monthlies? And then how many gate vends do you have? Does the system report gate vends, right? And then all of those should add up. You should have a complete and total understanding of every time that gate goes up. And then over time, you can look at the key metrics for your location. Parking over time isn't just about revenue. It's also about your drive-in rate, the occupancy of the garage. You want to make sure that you're having the proper amount of turns in that garage. So what do you drive out of that? You get your revenue per space over time, paid transactions per space over time, and then your total parked hours, right? So the bottom three are kind of interesting when you look at it from a large portfolio, right? Revenue per space over time. So every single month, what did you make per space in a garage and how did that work? Obviously, if you increase your rate from year to year, you're going to make more revenue year over year. But are you getting more paid transactions per space in that same rate change and span of time, right? That's very important. Now you can increase your paid transactions, right? Your paid transactions can go up, your revenue can go down, and your parked hours can go down. So if you've increased your revenue too much, people are still going to come, but they're going to stay a shorter amount of time, things of that nature. So these three metrics right here, as you track them over time, really kind of show optimization of a facility. The parked hours is key for overnight type facilities. It can be leading indicators for hotels and airports and things of that nature. So you really want to have that. Paid transactions per space over time is great for your mixed use, retail environments, malls, things of that nature. They're going to really key into that. So having a system that does this over time for you is incredibly important, or having this built out by your operating partner with the data that they're collecting from the parking system. So keeping in mind, in my opinion, parking is the secondary attraction. It's not the primary attraction, but it's often the main complaint. You know, lines getting into the garage, lines getting out of the garage, certainly make it a pain, right? You know, people are coming in and they're paying, you know, $250 for premium seats in a concert, and then they're stuck in the garage for an hour over a $5 ticket. You know, that type of experience obviously, you know, doesn't sit well with folks. But remember, you know, when it does come to parking, it does need to be as frictionless as possible. It needs to be as convenient as possible, you know, in order to literally have people come back. Law of large numbers don't lie. That's going back to the bottom three. Looking at things over time, looking at things as a trend is very important. That's where Tim and I spend a lot of time. You know, Tim is a real data guy, data sets, large data models, reporting models, trends. He spends a lot of time listening to our partners and what it is that they want to see and trying to find that needle in a haystack, right? System downtime. I love the Frog system. You know, Tim and Andrew are going to get into kind of our neat little gate. We take one of our parks partners in California. They'll do 2,700 vehicles per day, right, on average, going through these lanes. And in 2024, we actually replaced 0 gate arms. And that is a big shift from the traditional parks systems of service and maintenance. You can have a great service contract with your parks provider, but it doesn't cover vandalism and acts of God. So when somebody blows through your gate arm and that gate arm is down for, you know, a day or hours, you know, you're either losing revenue or you're losing throughput in your system. Plus you're incurring expense of replacing that arm or fixing that arm. For us, the system tracks it. We know how many vehicles go through. We have license plate technology on the system, so it flags that car. It knows if that car comes back, does all of those things. So if you have a system that kind of self-reports, self-heals, and can track that, and that goes back to the gate vends. What is unaccounted for, right? If you're able to do that, you understand what the value of the non-collected revenue is. So rates of failure. And then completely understanding your 5 and 7 year cost of ownership is incredibly helpful as a leading indicator when you're selecting your next parks partner. So a little bit of buyer's remorse. If you miss some of those things prior, it can negatively impact how things go, go lives, integrations, all of those things. But if you do all of that right, the rest of this, you also need to understand, hardware no longer being supported. What what is the longevity of systems? Um, I look at back in the day, was it 2014? 3M shuttered the federal system. They didn't sell it; they just shuttered it. 3M purchased the federal system. They purchased it and then just turned the lights out of a system that had, arguably 40% of the market in the US. They just didn't see the vision, right? So understanding who's at the top and what the longevity of that system is, what's their financial position in the market, what is their investors, their investor strategy, those types of things, very important. Um, if you if you if you don't do it correctly, your NOI per space per ticket is going to be low. And and again, looking at the overall portfolio across large locations, it can stick out. So keep an eye on that. Watch out for hidden fees. Understand what all the fees are going to be. Read the fine print. Limited modalities for driver interaction. Um, you know, on one side, I'm saying systems are changing. Don't be the special location, but also cover the modalities of the market that you serve. If you're in a healthcare environment, you're going to be working with folks that are, probably a little less adapted to scanning QR codes and the digital flow, right? They're going to want that more kinesthetic transaction. If you're working in airports, you're working with people that do parking often. They're used to those systems. They're tight on time. They want to get home to their families, those types of things. They're more apt to adopt the digital transaction. So really understanding, your customer will figure out who you are. But be careful of too many options. I've gone to these parking systems, and I'm sure we've all done that, right? You show up, maybe it's at a hotel or whatever, and there's 3 or 4 readers. It's a Marriott and another brand hotel plus commercial. And there's just all these signs, and you're overwhelmed, right? And I mean, we're in the industry, so watch out for that. Limited reporting. Understand what the reporting requirements are at the beginning, but also make sure you have access to that. The ultimate reporting tool is Excel on your computer. Um, at the end of the day, your parks provider will provide you reporting, give you reporting, but the actual finite is going to be access to the data, whether that be into your BI system or the BI system of your parking operator and operating partner. Be careful of systems that are closed environment. We're seeing less and less of this today. Everything's moving to the cloud. APIs are abundant. Integrations are far easier today than they've ever been. So I'm less concerned about that. And then enforcement. We mentioned through COVID, kind of this gateless app deal. Me personally, when I operate and I'm working on an operations ROI, I'm kind of, depending on where the lot is located, I'm kind of looking at parks systems, kind of in that 75 stall range. And again, depending on the turn in the market, how many people are coming through there. I think the industry has spoken that you can't go too far with a gateless approach because you're not going to get all of your revenue. The gate is the ultimate revenue collection machine. And if you have to have a lot of partners in your food chain to try to do the enforcement, do the skip tracing and those types of things, it becomes a lot of overhead, right? So again, partnering with the technology that meets the need, a parking operator that understands what you need in the market to maximize your revenue, they'll do the ROI calculation for, gates versus, plates, right? As laws are still trying to figure themselves out too in various states, I think it still remains to be seen whether we'll still go fully gateless in the next, 5, 10 years or not. So that's it for me. Any questions? No. Okay.
Any questions?
All right.
So I will take control again. Thank you, Greg. So what are the problems that are evident in the industry today? This is my section, and I'm going to approach it from a little bit more of the data that I've seen, the people that I've talked to, and the solutions that Frogparking ultimately came up with because of that. So first off, low optimization. Now, I'm not just talking here about the revenue optimization, but I will overlap some of the points that Greg's talked about. Mostly what I'm talking about here is that parking is expensive. A parking space is an investment over a specific time. Generally for on-street, that would be something like 40 years. And it's a cost. You've got to acquire that land. You've got to maintain it in a state that it will accept parking. And there's other things you could be doing with that. So essentially, every time you are not in some way generating revenue from that space is wasted. Now, that revenue can be realized directly through parking tariffs, or it can be realized through servicing of local business. So it could be tangible to your operation or intangible, but there are key factors that you need. You need, at most, the most possible utilization that you can that is feasible. So you always want that space occupied by the people who are generating that revenue. You at the same time need enough spaces that anybody looking for a parking space will be able to find it. So you don't want to aim for 100% utilization. You need a little bit less than that. But at the same time, large blocks of parking that go unused are a waste and can be repurposed. Another one, revenue leakage. So similar to what Greg was talking about, it's great to know what revenue you're pulling in and how many transactions, but how much are you missing? And the best way to tell that is to actually be tracking the occupancies of those spaces so that you can line up that data of saying, we were occupied 90% of the time, but we've only got payments for 30% of the time. Something's wrong. We need to do something about that. And there is a limit to how much you can divine that data purely from transactional information, which is why Frogparking does a hardware solution of some description, where we need to know what's happening when people aren't paying for stuff. High cruising time goes back to that utilization optimization. You need to make sure that people are not cruising around. It's slow, it's dangerous, it makes people unhappy, and unhappy people don't spend money at retail outlets, or they get very upset that they can't get to their class on time because they couldn't find a parking space. And the way to fix that is to provide them information. Show them where the available parks are. Show them what the availability is going to be as they leave their house before they get to their site. So they know, I'm not going to go to parking structure A, I will divert to parking lot B because I know that parking structure A is going to be full by the time I get there, based on data. Sustainability, I understand sustainability is one of those words that's kind of been worn out over the past few years. It's the buzzword. But at the same time, if you can provide good answers to a sustainability question for your end client, that's going to make you look better in their eyes, maybe push you towards, push them towards getting into an agreement with you. And again, with the initiatives that we have, with the software that we have, with the hardware that we have, all of this can be monitored. So we can take information from other market segments and say a Frogparking system has contributed to better sustainability by reducing overall traffic by 1%. Because again, with those high cruising times, we got vehicles into spaces faster, or we offered this incentive that enabled ride sharing. So, in a municipality, they're actually looking to decrease traffic. Lack of enforcement, that is a thing that I've seen a lot in, especially in the US. It seems that where people put rules up around parking, it is not enforced. And if you're not enforcing a rule, you may as well not have a rule. If you apply a little bit of technology, you can influence behavior. It's called enforcement here, but we actually like to call it compliance. Enforcement is not a way of making money. It's a way of ensuring fairness for all of your users. And all of this leads through to the lack of data and analytics. If you don't have a sufficiently rich data set for your operation, you don't know what's going on. And I've seen that time and again with our clients. As they come on board, they will say to me, oh, our problem with parking is absolutely this thing here. It's students parking in this retail lot and then going over to classes. We get the system in, we monitor it for a little bit. Turns out, hey, it's actually not. It's that all of your retail tenants' employees are parking on site before the site opens and then taking up all the premium parking. So if you don't know what's going on, you can't effectively fix it. And lastly, cash handling. Cash is going by the wayside, especially as parking rates move away from what you could do with pocket change. More people are starting to use credit cards, and let's just help that along. Cash machines are big, they're expensive, they are targets for vandalism. Our local city here lost 3 machines in the space of a month because somebody drove up with a pickup and just yanked it away so that they could get the $50 that was in the cash box. Those machines were $18,000 each. Let's do something a little bit different, make them less targets. And that's where Frogparking steps in. So a little bit of extra context with Frogparking. We've been in business for 15 years. We are solely owned by the people who started the business. And we have a philosophy of reinvesting for R&D, which is why we try and stay at the forefront of technology. While we are a profitable company, we don't slave ourselves to profit. So we're not running ourselves down trying to extract every last cent. We are pushing forth the bounds of what's possible, and we are bringing our clients along with us. It's like Greg said, do we have skin in the game? Yes, we do. Because if we succeed, if our clients succeed, everybody succeeds and everything gets better. And like I said, we're the end-to-end parking technology provider. We are not purely a parking gate supplier. We are not purely a software provider. We are everything. And we try to be that. There are 1 or 2 areas we're a little bit deficient in, but we have good partnerships to account for that. And so let's look at some of the innovation that our solutions have brought. This is a fairly good indication of the hardware that we've produced. As you can see, it includes indoor guidance, outdoor sensors, wayfinding, the whole parks thing. All of that is under our banner. Our clients can pick and choose what they need. A lot of our stuff is solar as well, making deployment incredibly easy. This Laguna Beach sign is out in the middle of nowhere. There was no possibility we could get power to it to have this dynamic sign. During the weekends, it changes over to show availability numbers because that lot is open to the public in the weekends. That sign will run for about a week if it gets no charge. It has quite a high density battery in it, but it's running quite happily with a very clear display to road users just off solar, and that essentially means we can put it absolutely anywhere.
And it's nice, Tim, kind of tying in, our in-house development, hardware design, engineering, software, everything you showed on that previous slide, all of that hardware is manufactured by Frog. And Andrew's going to get into this a little bit more on the dashboard and having everything integrated. But I think in the general parks in the US, you're kind of seeing um, a, a go-to market where VARs are more or less being gobbled up by the larger brands. But you also see the larger brands manufacturing less of what they used to manufacture before because they can actually get something slightly cheaper by integrating. So where the integrator layer used to be at the market level with your installer, they used to integrate different parts. Now the integrator is more or less at the OEM level. A lot of the large brands, they don't make their own gates. They don't make their own LPR. They don't make their own digital signs like this. You know, these signs are manufactured by Frog. Um, they don't make their own guidance, so on and so on. You know, they've become this web of integrated parts and solutions that makes scalability sometimes difficult, and it also makes long-term support difficult because you're dependent on partners that could go out of business. They could get acquired by others. You know, you have a lot more roadmaps of code and APIs to manage, hardware, supplies, and logistics to manage. For Frog, we actually have optimization at the manufacturing level because we control all of those supplies and logistics. We choose what to manufacture and what not. Where we actually do say no to customers because we don't want to have a bespoke system, but at the same time, we're able to offer beautiful solutions like this with a low environmental impact. We don't have to do trenching. We don't have to do all this other work in order to provide a seamless solution to our customers and operations.
Thanks, Greg. I am cognizant that we are slowly running out of time. So this is a video showing our gateway in operation. I'm sorry for the sound if it's coming through. Actually, I won't speak to that. I can provide that video for anybody who needs it. Essentially, the gate has a lot of innovation in and of itself. It allows for this auto reset, it allows you to drop that revenue leakage. It will detect a person. We use, instead of a magnetic loop safety, we use a LiDAR safety. And that means that the public safety is improved. It also means much better for retrofitting. You don't have to do those subsurface digging to replace magnetic loops when you change this. And also, LiDAR's better than magnetic loops. I've seen some legacy systems using magnetic loops. They fail right out of the gate because if you try and press gang a magnetic loop into doing vehicle counting, it's going to go badly for you. That was going to be a video of our guidance system. Let me just see if I can make that play. Here it comes. This is an indication of guidance. It's central aisle, which means that there is lower levels of equipment. It is incredibly fast, and it feeds into the what I was talking about before of getting utilization up in your site. If you're looking down this aisle from the end, maybe you can't tell whether or not there's a space beyond this pickup truck right here. This system would be able to tell you, like, could you tell from looking at this that there's actually a space down here somewhere? So this kind of immediate and instant feedback to the user is what makes people happier and gets them into spaces faster. And why did we pick LiDAR? That system and that gate is run off LiDAR because it is actually so much better than everything else out there. You know, a camera system is complex. It requires on-site image processing to make sure that everything's working and to do its detection. LiDARs are essentially a point measurement. A vehicle is either there or it's not. And while you can never say something's 100%, the detection of our LiDAR solution globally is the best we've ever had out of everything. We also have none of this. This is a key point for Frogparking. We don't require some dingy server room somewhere where this is where you've got to go to make changes. You have to have a technician come on site to do everything. Everything that we do is all software based. These are all of the software modules. Because we've digitized everything, it means that all of the management can be done online. Instead of a physical ticket, you have your vehicle as your ticket, which means that you can do all of the user type things you might want to do. You can get a permit for frictionless entry. You can make payments. You can validate. You can reserve. All of the stuff is all electronic, personalized to you. Because of time, I won't go into a live situation, but the dashboard is real time. You've got all of your outputs coming out as they happen. You've got models that you can watch things as they happen in the environment. You can watch your key traffic, see if there's any action points that you need to take. You can monitor revenue. You can get reports out. You can control the way that your customers interact with your system. Like Greg was saying, some people don't like the QR code, the mobile thing. So provide them on a terminal a customized workflow. As soon as you modify this flowchart around and it's easy to read and work with, you hit save, it's out on your terminals and it's working. You're not having people going around with a piece of custom software to update with a USB stick. Similarly, parking rates. We have nice graphical tools for putting in calendars. That means that we can assist our operators in becoming independent. They don't have to come to us every time they need to do a rate change. You just modify some stuff on a camera. Memorial Day is coming up. Just put in a Memorial Day rate for it. As soon as you hit save, that goes out live to all connected systems. Tailor-made reports. I have had comments in the past of getting data out of a system can be difficult. You've got to go to various different tables. The information isn't presented in a nice way. You've got to accumulate it all elsewhere and then manage it. Why not just provide somebody with a custom report? The data's there. We have the skill to do it. Just make a report template that they can pull from. Similarly, the statistics, all of that stuff about optimization comes into essentially these plots. You monitor these plots to see what your utilization looks like. What's your visitation looking like? Who's paying what? Who is paying for sessions versus not paying for sessions? All of these things available within the system answer those questions that Greg was coming back to earlier with what's your price, your revenue per space, revenue per ticket. This is where you monitor that. You make a change, instant feedback through this system. And lastly, data ownership and security. I mentioned before that we make sure that our clients are the ones that own their own parking data. Also, we partner with PCI DSS to do the gateway of payments. And also we have high security standards for our user information. And we minimize the amount of personal information we're collecting or touching so that in the event of a breach, we're not actually leaking any personal information. Apologies for racing through that so quickly, but are there any questions for me on that one?
Do not see any questions.
Okay, cool. In that case, Andrew, passing control of the keyboard to you.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I will. There is actually a question that's just popped up for you.
Oh, is there?
Yes, just popped up right now. Jose asks, how do you address non-gated pay-by-plate facilities?
Usually we recommend that those have some form of enforcement. So we would recommend that they have an indoor guidance system if they're not having a gate system, so that we can know how many vehicles are coming through. And then, depending on the nature of that system, you enforce upon it later. We actually have a client in Wellington who is doing gateless parking structures. They have permission to search for vehicles that are non-compliant and just mail them parking tickets. They have a process for doing that. Normally it's only on repeat offenders, but they are able to use a camera gateless system and mobile payment solutions to provide the system to the users. And then for repeat offenders on the outside, they just receive a ticket in the mail.
Gotcha. We do have another question if we want to answer it. What about cash-heavy locations or cash-heavy economy? What solutions you bring along to handle those?
We have integrations through to a couple of well-known parking payment terminals providers that provide cash. So we can, in a cash-heavy environment, accept cash. We are just trying to make cash conveniently inconvenient where possible. I have found that there are places that cash is being used out of habit. But if a client comes in and says, no, we absolutely must accept cash every 100 feet, sure, we'll just say that requires that you use this other hardware over here with all of the extra security things. But as much as possible, we're trying to convince people to not use cash. And if it became too onerous to support it in that method, we might just walk away from that deal.
Understood. All right, Andrew, all yours.
Oh, thank you, thank you. All right, we are running fairly short on time, so I will probably have to blitz through this reasonably quickly. Okay. All right, so I'm in charge of the software here at Frogparking, and we're doing some really cool, innovative stuff. I wanted to give everyone watching just a little bit of a glimpse of that into how we actually structure things in a way that allows us to be innovative and to achieve a lot of these things that Tim and Greg have talked about. So there's a stack of things that is working in our advantage. So number one, we've touched on this already, in-house development. So because we are actually in charge of the development for all of our software, all of our hardware, and everything in between, we actually have a lot of ability to come up with things. We'll say a software engineer working with a piece of hardware will have a brilliant idea. We'll have a talk to the hardware team, and we can make it happen. We've done a lot of really cool stuff coming out of that. And it really gives us this massive advantage over what you call a legacy integrator, someone who just buys a parking gate or just the payment machine and tries to stitch them together. And you end up running into a lot of limitations when you try and do that, or when you just want to try and achieve something really cool that would really blow the customer's socks off, but you can't do it. So that's something that we can do. Also, because we are cloud first, which is a different approach. A lot of systems, like you saw in Tim's slides, you have massive big server rooms, you've got a lot of on-site technology, because everything of ours is designed to be cloud driven. We still have gear on the ground, of course, but it's all cloud driven. So we can scale that up almost infinitely because we can take advantage of big data centers, Microsoft, Amazon, those kind of guys, and we can just scale that up. So we don't have to put a new server, you don't have to upgrade an on-site server. There's none of that kind of stuff with the way that we do it. We also always look to leverage new technology. So we're always looking to see what is the latest and greatest, and we try and structure everything in-house in a way that we can actually take advantage of that. It's not a 5-year development life cycle to come up with the next cool thing. We want to be a lot shorter than that, a lot more fast at delivering those solutions. So we do, the web development, the backend development, we do our mobile apps as well, and of course that hardware development. So being able to stitch all of that together and have communication within that entire process, that gives us some really great ability to actually achieve some cool outcomes. That's things like the tight feedback loops. So like I said, between software and hardware engineers, we can, within a matter of weeks, get new features added in the pipeline, rather than having to maybe go and have an annual meeting with an integrator and try and get some things rolling that might happen a couple of years down the track. We can just get it done. We've also got agile teams that can, and when I say agile, I don't mean the agile software development, I mean we are fast and we're good at what we do. So we can take a concept. So maybe Greg's out there, he's just talking to a customer, and the customer says, wow, it would be really cool if this thing could happen. Greg will be on the phone with me. He'll say, hey, can we make this happen? And I'll say, yeah, of course. And so we'll pivot, we'll get that done, and that'll be out in the next release, might be 2 weeks. Something like that is unheard of, especially for people who have been waiting for, it takes 8 weeks to get someone on site with a USB stick just to update the rates. We have a lot of communication going on between our teams, our fast development cycles, and of course our cloud-first architecture means that we can add new modules, we can get stuff built really quick and get that out there. sorry, I see a question. Can you share the presentation? Oh, this is for later. That's fine. Yeah, so like I said, because we're cloud first, we can scale up to thousands and thousands of devices, and we can just scale accordingly. So we're not going to hit any limitations. So that is a really innovative thing that that we're doing. We do our best to remove legacy limitations. So that's just things like getting rid of, say, on-site servers, because that is a limitation. You've got maintenance for that server, you've got downtime if that ever goes down. You've got a lot of issues. And so when we approach things, we try and come up with a way that's going to be the best for the customer, the best for us to maintain, and that's going to also decrease the maintenance and increase uptime. We also do everything in the browser. So often you'll see a tech come on site, they'll have to open up an old Windows app onto their laptop and plug it into the machine and start doing some things. None of that. We were going to show some demos. I don't think Tim managed to get to that, but we can edit pretty much everything in the web browser, and that will disseminate immediately down to the technology on the ground. So we're trying to make it like a real modern SaaS product that is controlling all of this hardware on the ground. We use real time as much as we can, so that's a big focus of our systems. So that if a car parks in a store, that is immediately going to be showing on dashboards and the stats, and you'll be able to see it in just a moment with the 3D view that we actually have. They'll show as well. And then we try to incorporate AI. I know it's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but we have got some really cool stuff in there, and there's a lot more stuff coming as well, which is going to be sort of innovative use of AI. So one really cool thing we do is create the virtual parking lot. So we have a drag and drop designer, so anyone can do this. Often we do this for customers, but they can do it themselves. You can drag and drop, and you can create the layout of your parking lot. So super easy to use, super intuitive. And then what that translates into is a real-time 3D view. And you can see we've got a parking lot here. We've got a bunch of cars parked. So this is a site that actually has guidance. So that was the LiDAR that you saw in the video Tim played. So every time a car parks in one of those stalls, you actually get a car appearing in real time in this view, and then it will be color coded as to the lifetime of that. So it also forms a bit of a heat map. You can also click on, say, a gate or a terminal, and you can give commands like open. So if you want to vend the gate, you can click on it in here and click go, just like a game. So we're trying to make things cool and easy to use for everybody. So like I said, we're trying to incorporate AI. So we've got AI in our valet product right now. That started off as fairly simplistic use of AI, where it'll look at the photos that you are taking, and it will be able to interpret the color, the make, the model, the plate, and fill all of those things in to take time off what the valet has to do manually. But we're finding that as AI is progressing, because it's progressing very rapidly. I don't know if you follow the space, but every week there's a new model, which is the latest and greatest. It's the best. And what's actually happening is it's pushing down the cost of intelligence. So we're able to incorporate more and more smart things, like taking phone calls and answering intercoms. All those kind of things that used to require a human. Now we're on the verge of being able to have AI take over, and we're only going to see that improve as these models get better and better, and of course get cheaper and cheaper as well. Roadmap, I don't have anything specific that I'm allowed to talk about here, but it really comes down to trying to create those innovative things that are going to really impress the customers, make things easier on the ground, and help with all of the revenue control and just take load off. So there's a lot of things, especially in that AI space that we're working on, which are going to take load off of the end user and our customers as well, and really just accelerate what you can do and make things easier. So I've managed to squeeze it in, maybe just not quite the time, but I think that's going to be the end of my bit. So maybe Greg wants to say a couple of words to finish it off.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're running out of time for Q&A, but yeah, if you have any final thoughts for today's presentation.
Nope, I'm good. I appreciate everybody for joining. Any other questions, please reach out to any of us. Happy to email or continue the conversation at a later time.
Awesome. Yes, I will be sending out the archived video as long as with our presenters' contact information. So I know somebody wanted a presentation. You can go ahead and contact our presenters, and I'm sure they will get in touch and get you and help you out. And we want to thank you, Greg, Tim, and Andrew, for hosting today's Learning Lab. And we thank everybody for joining us today. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.